Welcome back to another video. In this video we will work on edit functionality so that you can make a to-do and then click on this edit button and a form will appear here instead of what we see right now, and then you can click on save and it will update. For that we have a little extra behavior where we are basically toggling a form on and off. So we are either displaying this form that we see here or we are displaying an input. So we need to go to our to-do component. So let's go to our code, and this is a to do component, and we are going to have some conditional logic in our render to decide if we are displaying a form or we are displaying the to do task. But in addition we need to keep track of which one is showing, and it's going to change depending on if the user has clicked the button or not, and that means we need to use some state if that's going to change. So inside the constructor we are going to write this dot state equals to, and let's call the property is editing, and at the beginning it should be false. And now down in our render we are going to tweak things a bit and use that this dot state is editing. So we will use if statement. So here I'll write if this dot state dot is editing, and if this is the case, so before that we need to make a variable. So let's make a variable let result. Let's call the variable name result. Okay, and if this dot state dot is editing, if this is the case, so result will be equal to div, and inside the div we will have a form which will have an input. So input type will be text. Otherwise we will do an else condition, else result is equal to, and we will set the result to be this whole thing. So let's cut this and paste it here, and at the very end we will return result. So here we need to write result. Let's save it. So now let's go to the browser, and right now nothing will change. Let's add a to do, and if I go to React DevTools, so let me inspect and go to React DevTools component, and if I click on this to do, so here is the state is editing. So if I click on is editing, so a form appears. So that part is working now. Next let's make the toggling on the button click rather than we click over here. So to do that we need to add on click to the edit button. So let's go to the code, and here in the edit button we need to add an on click. So on click equals to this dot toggle form. So this method does not exist yet, so let's define it. So here I'll define the method toggle form, and here we need to write this dot set state is editing is equal to this dot state dot is editing. This is very straightforward. We are making is editing to be opposite of whatever it is. So is editing is going to be the opposite of that. So if it is true, we are setting it to be false, and if it is false we are setting it to be true. So that will toggle the form, and then we need to bind this function. So here we need to write this dot toggle form is equal to this dot toggle form dot bind this. Let's save this and let's check in the browser if it is working or not. So let me close this and let me add a to do, and if I click on edit, so yes, the form appears, so it is working. And now we need a submit button on the form. So now we need a button to submit this form. Okay, so we need to go to the code. So let's add a button in the form. So here we need to add a button. So I'll write button, name of the button will be save. Now in our form let's add on submit event. So in the form let's write on submit equals to curly braces And this submit event will take whatever new item, whatever data is in that input and save it. Save it means passing it up to the to-do list to some method which we haven't defined yet. So let's call this method as this dot handle update. And then we need to define handle update. So here we need to define handle update, which will take an event object. So let's do an event dot prevent default. So event dot prevent default. And now we need to make this control input. So we need to create something in the state. So let's call it task, which will be an empty string at the beginning. And this input will set the value to be this dot state dot task, and name will set to task. And then we will write an on change. So here on change equals to this dot handle change, which does not exist. Let's copy the handle change from new to do form. Let us copy this. Let's go to todo.js, and here we need to paste it. It is the same handle change that we need here. So I just copied it and pasted, and now we need to bind this. So this dot handle change equals to this dot handle change dot bind this. And even we need to bind this handle update. So let's bind this as well. This dot handle update equals to this dot handle update dot bind this. So now there is one more issue. If I go to the browser and if I add some to-dos, and if I edit, when I edit something, the form appears, but the task is still showing up empty. This is because the task at the beginning is an empty string, but we want it to be this dot props dot task. This props is coming from to-do component. This is coming from here, task equals to to-do dot task. So we can access this props task here. Okay, this dot props dot task. So in this case, we need to pass props in super to access this prop. Let me save this, and if I go to the browser and if I write any to do and if I edit, now you can see the task is showing in the input. And if I write something and if I inspect it, and if we go to React DevTools component, if I click on to do, so here you can see in the state the task has been updated. And if I don't pass this props in super, and if I save this and if I go here, and now if I add any task, so it will give me an error. Cannot read property task of undefined, this dot props dot task. So we need to define props here in the super to access this props. Okay, I hope this is clear. So now we need to take new task data and pass it up to the parent. So we need to define a method on parent that will actually take the new task. So we could pass it whatever the updated task is. So let's go to to-do list, and here we need to define a method. So let's call it as update, and we need to know what are we updating. So one is the ID. So ID, why are we taking ID? We need the ID to find the item. And then what is the new task? So we will call it as updated task. So here I'm going to make a separate variable called updated to dos. So let's make a variable const updated to dos, which is equal to this dot state dot to dos dot map, which will just call each one to do. and give an arrow function, and I will just check if todo.id is equal to the id which we are looking for. We are going to return the existing to-dos, the existing to-do, but we are going to update the task. So task is set to updated task. So we don't want to change the ID or anything here. So this takes the existing stuff from the to-do that we are updating, but override the task, changes it to be our updated task. Otherwise, we are just going to return to-do, which is unchanged. And at the end, we will call this dot set state. So here, this dot set state, which is going to set to-dos to be that array called updated to-do. Let's save this. Now we need to bind this method. So here we need to write this dot update equals to this dot update dot bind this. And then we need to pass it down in our individual to do. So here we need to give the name of the props, which is update to do, which is equal to this dot update. And now inside our todo.js, we have the access to this dot props dot update to do. So first let me save this and let us go to todo.js, and inside handle update, we can have access for that prop, this dot props dot, let me check the name of the prop, update to do. So let us copy this name of the prop and let us paste it here. And now we need to pass in an ID and then update task. So the ID is going to be this dot props dot ID, and the task will be this dot state dot task. Okay, so state dot task is whatever there is in the form at that moment, and then we need to bind this handle update. So we have already bind the handle update. So now we need to do one more thing. We need to make is editing false. So here in the handle update, we need to write this dot set state, and inside set state, we will write is editing, which is set to false. Let's save this, and now FALS. Let's save this, and now let's go to the browser and check. Let me close this, and if I add any to do, let me add one more, and let's edit this to get up in the morning, and let's save this. So we are getting an error. This dot props dot update to do is not a function. Let me check this. Okay, so I have done one mistake. So let's go to do list, and here the spelling of update is wrong. So let me change it to the correct one, update. Let's save this, and now let's go to the browser. And now if I add a to do, and if I edit this to get up in the morning, and let's save this. So now you can see the task has been updated. So it is working fine. So this is for this video, and I'll see you in the next video.